Hello, I'm Alexander Adams, your amateur psychologist, and today we're going to be talking about Harry Potter and how his affection-starved childhood led to a fear of abandonment and some monumental daddy issues. Now, Harry Potter was orphaned as an infant and then placed into the care of the Dursleys. Now, his surrogate family made it incredibly clear that he was considered to be a huge burden. On one hand, you have his uncle Vernon, who was an authoritarian bully, constantly threatening him with physical violence, and on the other, you have his aunt, Petunia, who was incredibly withholding and just showered her son with love while completely ignoring Harry. The only real benevolent adult figure in his life was a crazy old cat lady neighbor who would babysit him sometimes. They didn't have any particular bond, but hey, she wasn't abusive, so there's that. Harry was deprived of love as a child. Dr. Harry Harlow did extensive research on the connection between love and cognitive development. He took orphaned baby monkeys and gave them a wire mother to nurse on. He also gave them a cloth mother who was much more inviting. Now, the monkeys would go to the wire mother to get their nourishment, but then they would spend the majority of their time clinging to the soft, cuddly mother. And having her around made them much more confident, and they developed much faster than the monkeys who were only given the wire mother to interact with. So in this example, Harry only had the wire mother, aka the Dursleys. Then all of a sudden things took a sudden turn for the better, and Harry was introduced to the wizarding world and his place in it. He went from feeling unheard, unvalued, to all of a sudden he is an honest-to-goodness celebrity with magical powers. Now, with this brave new world that he's going into, he also acquired some new parental substitutes. First, there's Molly Weasley, who becomes his maternal substitute and is much more loving and affectionate than Aunt Petunia ever was. Now, in Harry's life, but she isn't actually his guardian. He's not under her care, and she doesn't make important decisions for him the way a parent would for a child. The closest thing Harry has to that is Albus Dumbledore, his headmaster and, ironically, the wizard who placed him in the Dursleys' care. Now, Harry bonds with Albus Dumbledore very quickly because he's the first reasonable authority figure he's ever interacted with. He's used to either neglect or abuse, and all of a sudden he meets this compassionate, wise figure who listens to him and actually lets him feel heard. This is incredibly basic, but coming from Harry's background, he really values this and is incredibly grateful. When Harry turns 15, he finds out that that old babysitter was actually a spy that Dumbledore had in place to keep an eye on Harry. So this means that Dumbledore knew about all the years of abuse. Harry doesn't see it that way. He just doesn't make that connection because he can't. He has put Dumbledore on a huge pedestal, and he is going to do all sorts of mental gymnastics to make sure he stays there. He can't handle the fact that another parental figure has failed him yet again. So he goes into denial and sublimates any feelings of resentment he has about Dumbledore abandoning him with the Dursleys. He doesn't confront him about the core issues in their relationship. And there's some very specific reasons why. Number one, abandonment. Having been abandoned as an infant, Harry is terrified of that happening again. You see this in a lot of his other relationships. Anytime things start to get tough, his first instinct is to push his friends away. He needs to be in control. He can't let the cycle continue. He can't be abandoned again. So he's going to reject them before they can reject him. This fear of abandonment comes into play with Dumbledore because Dumbledore isn't his parent or guardian. He is under no moral or legal obligation to continue this special relationship with him. If anything, it's incredibly unprofessional for him to have all this blatant favoritism on display. Harry knows this. Harry knows that at a moment's notice, if he were to ever push things too far or press one of Dumbledore's buttons, he could be cut off just like that. And that would be emotionally devastating. He already lost his father before he could even form any real lasting memory of him. He can't afford to lose a father figure. His psyche just can't handle that. So he is going to do whatever it takes to maintain this relationship. Another important factor is timing. Harry starts to question Dumbledore around the same time that he finds out that his father used to bully kids who were loners and looked different. This cuts particularly deep for Harry because he spent the first 11 years of his life being bullied for being a loner who looked different. He used to identify very strongly with his dead father, and he had this romanticized vision of him. Now, he doesn't want to identify with this person. All of a sudden, it's too gritty and real, so he's kind of distancing himself from that. Then, that same year, his godfather dies. So he loses 2 parental figures in 1 year. He's not about to try and jeopardize his relationship with Dumbledore. Unfortunately, Dumbledore dies before they can resolve any of these issues. He also dies a martyr, so Harry's under social pressure to sublimate any negative feelings he has about Dumbledore, and feels very guilty for harboring these feelings towards a man who died so heroically. Now, in my highly unprofessional opinion, I believe that Harry needs to address all these feelings that he has that are unresolved about Dumbledore and his relationship with him, any lingering resentment and guilt. He needs to be able to unbox them and discuss them in a safe space and actually address them and have these feelings validated. Unfortunately, we've run out of time for this session, but please like this video and subscribe, and I will see you soon.